Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Skip Allen, and I am the host of the Top 5 Weekly. This week is the big Star Wars Spectacular episode. I've been talking about it with these guys for quite a while. We had this week circled. We're going to talk about Star Wars, and what we're going to do is Star Wars scenes. And instead of there's only 8 films, so I mean we would all probably have the same ones. So we decided to go with Star Wars top 5 Star Wars scenes, and in the middle of the show we're going to do our 5 actors, actresses, directors, cinematographers, so forth that we think or we would like to see show up in a future Star Wars film. So with that being said, let's introduce our panelists this evening. Andrew.
Hello, everyone. I'm once again back. Glad to be back for this episode. Star Wars means a whole lot to me in my personal life. I'd like to thank Dan for having me on once again.
Steven, with the Santa Claus hat.
Yeah, we also don't want to forget that this coming weekend is Christmas. I hope everybody has a good Christmas. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to say it at the end of the show. And, yes, Star Wars is now going to be a December thing, I think, from now on for a while. So get used to it. Let's talk Star Wars scenes. There's too many to pick from, but I tried.
Yeah, I tried. I may have rounded off a little bit in some of these scenes, but I love Star Wars. I grew up with it. I saw Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi in the theater as a kid. So I'm a little bit older. So I did see a few of these films, and Empire really hit me hard as a child. It's one of my favorite films of all time. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan. We're also going to give our little non-spoilers review of Rogue One. So don't worry, we're not going to spoil the film. We're just going to kind of give our opinions a little bit. That's all. All right, so with that being said, Andrew, let's get it started. What is your number 5 favorite scene from the Star Wars films?
I'm going to start out hot and heavy. I'm going to go with the Battle of Hoth in Empire Strikes Back. I'm starting with that because, one, it's very jarring if you're coming straight from watching A New Hope, because at the end of A New Hope, you're all happy, you're joyful, yay, the rebellion won a huge battle, the Death Star's destroyed, and then you get to the Battle of Hoth, and it is a much different note. It's a battle that they lose. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, it's been around for 40 years. But it's very interesting in the fact that when I'm watching it as a kid, I don't have the concept of like listening to dialogue or military strategy and stuff like that. So I didn't understand that the whole point of the battle was to be a distraction so that they could run away. I couldn't compute that in my little 8-year-old head at the time. So watching it, I was always saddened that they lost that battle. But when I think about it, when you see the AT-ATs for the first time, is kind of an iconic moment because you've never seen these types of military weaponry before when you're watching Star Wars, and they're so iconic today. And then you see the snow speeders, and there's a battle on Hoth, and it's very cold, and it's a complete different feel than you saw in the end of A New Hope. So I always have had a growing appreciation for the Battle of Hoth as I've gotten older.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I loved talk about one of the best scenes of Star Wars. Hoth is amazing. That didn't make my list, but I do love that scene. Empire, well, I can't even get into it. Empire is just an amazing movie. All right, Steven, go ahead.
To start off, my criteria for how I did my list is I wanted to include almost as many. I wanted to do at least a scene from as many of the Star Wars films as possible. I didn't want to I could just pick like 5 scenes from Empire Strikes Back and then be done. But like, I don't want to do that. It would be boring. So my first one, my number 5 is going to actually be from Force Awakens. This scene, there was some really good stuff in there. And this is more of a moment. I mean, the whole scene's good, but the moment to me is really what capped it off. And that is when Rey gets the lightsaber for the first time. And Kylo's going for the blue lightsaber, and she gets it instead. And every time I saw the movie, I saw it like 7 or 8 times in the theaters. Every time that scene happened and that moment happened, it gave me the chills. And the music swells in that spot. The Star Wars theme swells in that spot. Gives me the chills every time. But that whole scene itself is a great scene. And you know, just the pure good versus evil right there in that scene. And it's, you know, you've built up the whole movie how powerful Kylo is. He can stop a laser bolt in the middle of the air, but somehow Rey gets the lightsaber. And it's just to me, one of the great moments in Star Wars. And it's my number 5.
Now that is a great scene. I mean, I think everybody's mouth was like open, wondering what was going to happen there. Mine's is, you know, I have a soft spot for the original trilogy, and I really have a soft spot for these kinds of like these underground places like the Mos Eisley Cantina. And I love the Figrin Dan and the mobile notes, the band. I love the seedy side of the Star Wars universe. And the Mos Eisley Cantina is got to be on my top 5 scenes when Obi-Wan and Luke and the droids come to the Mos Eisley Cantina. Of course, the bartender says, "No droids allowed in here. We don't serve those kind." Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. But also in there is Han shoots Greedo, the classic Han, who shot first, Han or Greedo scene. So, I mean, the Mos Eisley Cantina is just, God, you just gotta love that scene in A New Hope, and it's one of my favorite. That's why I got, when they did the books, you know, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, I ate that up. I wanted to learn about the devil and Greedo and all these, the bartender and all these other, Hammerhead. I wanted to learn about their backstories and who these characters were that were in the Mos Eisley Cantina, and that's why I love that scene so much. Andrew, what is your number 4?
My number 4, once again, I'm going to go hot and heavy. I'm going to go the Death Star Trench Run. The Death Star Trench Run, of course, it's the iconic scene at the end of A New Hope. I mean, something like that had never really been put on screen before. With that type of epicness and adventure and action, it was really, truly a unprecedented thing in filmmaking to pull off. And all credit goes to George Lucas for having that forethought and for that ingenuity and imagination to pull it off. And it's a scene that I watch today, and I do all the quotes for it and all things like that. You know what I mean? It's iconic scene. I love it. It's the climax of the movie. It's really interesting to watch now and you go back and you watch it, and the people who they got to pilot some of these X-Wings don't look like they are the most proficient at piloting X-Wings. Porkins is one of them. I don't know what the physical training was to pilot an X-Wing into the Death Star, but apparently he could pass it. Gives me hope for piloting an X-Wing one day. And he is, well, he has an iconic death because he is indeed the first death in the Death Star Trench Run, I believe. But it's a great sequence. You see at the end, Ben Kenobi talking to Luke from beyond the grave. He has become one with the Force, so he can now train Luke, probably more so now than he did when he was alive. So it's really just a fantastic scene, and it's in every Star Wars montage you'll ever find.
Yeah, you know, this is the Rebel Alliance. I'm sure they were just lucky to find anybody that wanted to fight on their side, even a little bit of overweight pilots.
Yeah, I mean, you get what you can get at that moment. It's going to be, and when you watch Rogue One, which we'll get to later, you can definitely see the rebellion in a more full light.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, God almighty. Steven, what is your number 4 favorite Star Wars scene?
If they'd have just let Dax go up there by himself, it would have been all okay. But my number 4 is one that I think is one of my favorite moments from the prequel trilogy. And it contains one of the best characters that came out of the prequel trilogy, and that is from Episode 1, and that's the Darth Maul fight at the end. Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul. When he first comes out, door opens, one lightsaber, two double lights. Oh my God! The first time you saw a double-hilted lightsaber in Star Wars in a movie, and you're like, holy shit! Like, and it's wow. And that fight just goes on and on. It's more of a sequence technically, but it goes on. And spoiler, it's pretty old too now. Qui-Gon dies, and then Obi-Wan just gets pissed off and just takes him out, cuts him in half. It's epic. Obi-Wan is a Sith Slayer. That's his nickname. It's probably his Twitter handle. So, yeah. I mean, it's Darth Maul, guys. He's badass. So,
yeah, I got the Darth Maul Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Jinn battle at the end of A Phantom Menace on my honorable mentions. I love that scene. That's why when people talk about the Phantom Menace and they say, "Oh, the Phantom Menace is a piece of garbage because of Jar Jar Binks," no, it isn't. In my opinion, there's a lot of good things about the Phantom Menace. Despite Jar Jar Binks, there are a lot of good things. There's music. There's new characters. There's beautiful special effects. There's planets that we haven't seen. There's all kinds of different things that are going on.
It's the first place they introduced Duel of Fates too, which I forgot in that scene. So
yeah, that scene was amazing. That music was just breathtaking to listen to. But I'm not going to get into arguing good and bad and all this kind of stuff. We're here to talk about our favorite scenes. I'm glad you had that on your top 5, Steven. All right, my number 4 is The Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader on Cloud City. Lando says, "You have a lot of nerve coming here," and then Darth Vader kind of gets to Cloud City before our friends Luke and Han and Leia and Han and Chewie and C-3PO and them. He gets there first. He kind of made a deal with Lando. And of course, that classic scene when Lando goes out. He comes out and he says, "Oh, you got a lot of nerve coming here," and then of course he's just kind of goofing around. He's actually like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. You guys are my friend. Welcome." And then of course he stabs him in the back, and because Boba Fett and Darth Vader are waiting inside Cloud City. But of course we know Lando redeems himself before it's all said and done. But it's once again the seedier side of Star Wars that I just love. Bounty hunters, Lando. You don't know a lot about Lando because he's a new character that time. I want to learn more about this kind of shisty kind of wheeler dealer that Han is friends with, that they take him to Cloud City in another planet. I mean, Bespin. I mean, what a beautiful planet, Bespin. John Roca, he doesn't know about Bespin, but I do, and it's a beautiful, beautiful planet. And Cloud City is just once again a new place that they introduce in the Star Wars universe, and it's an amazing place in Empire Strikes Back, and that's why I love that scene. Like I said, I'm kind of rounding up on some of these scenes. But all right, so like I said at the beginning of the show, we all came up with a list of names: cinematographers, directors, composers, actors, actresses that we would like to see for one various reason or another, or we think has a good shot at making it into a Star Wars movie. And we can't pick people that are already in movies or have already been talked about. Like Benicio del Toro has already been talked about as being in Episode 8, Laura Dern, Episode 8. So you can't pick the people that have already been chosen to be in a movie. Now, rumored people is good. You can pick a rumored person because they haven't been officially said that they're in a Star Wars movie. So a rumored person, if you like that, you're like, "Oh, that's cool, Cassie. I'd love to see that person." Well, that's fine to put them on your list. It's not like we're freaking getting paid to do this, or we're going to get in trouble if we put the wrong person on our list or some crap like that. We're just having fun. We're just trying to do this as this kind of a conversation piece between the three of us. Some people that we would like to see in future movies. The casting has been so great. We talked about this before the show. Star Wars is really Lucasfilm has really done a great job casting the first two films. It looks like with Laura Dern and Benicio del Toro in the next film, they've done a nice job casting that, putting some people in Episode 8. So, with that being said, let's go to Andrew. Andrew, what is your number 5 person that you would like in to be work on a Star Wars film?
Okay, my number 5 is going to be a veteran actor, someone who could possibly be in some Star Wars film later on. He's already been in large budget films, so he's well known, and that is Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman, I think, would be a very interesting pick for a later film. I'm not quite sure what his role would be. If we're talking one of the episodic films and not one of the middle films or the anthology films, perhaps someone who is a leader in the new government or something like that.
All right, I'll tell you what, Gary Oldman, what a villain! He would be a great villain down the road.
Yeah, that also, he has done villains extremely well too.
Yeah, that is a great pick, Andrew. Steven, you're number 5.
I'm going to start out talking about a composer I'd really like to see, and that is Howard Shore. Howard Shore's done Lord of the Rings is what the most popular thing he's done. And I think, anything. Obviously, until John Williams dies, he's probably going to continue to do episodic stuff. But, yeah, Howard Shore's just amazing composer. I'd love to see him do something.
Yeah, that's it. Once again, that's a good pick. I got an actress of well-renowned. She hasn't won any Oscars yet. She's got a huge, amazing role this year in a movie. I highly recommend everybody seeing Mrs. Sloane. That's Jessica Chastain. I think the gravitas of a Jessica Chastain would be great for like a kind of like a senator, or maybe even like a female Sith or somebody like that. Somebody that would be really, because her name really brings respect. People like hear the name Jessica Chastain. Yeah, she's a big shot. She's somebody that is big. And I think of all of the 5 names on my list, I think she's the biggest name on my list. But I wanted to put somebody big, somebody that, oh man, wouldn't she be cool to play some nasty Sith lady, or like
she would zero dark 30 them. Yes.
Yeah. She would. If you look at her in Mrs. Sloane, she's got an evil side to her. But I know she could play like a senator or somebody in the Senate or in the government. You don't know what the government's like in the New Order anyway, with the whole new thing going on. So, yeah, Jessica Chastain, I had at number 5. All right, Andrew, number 4.
Number 4 is more of a shot in the dark. I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Steven and go with a composer. And I'm going to go with one of my favorites who continues to make scores that really emotionally stir me, and that is Hans Zimmer. I don't think it will ever happen because he is wrapped up in a lot of other projects, particularly with Warner Brothers. But I would really like to see perhaps him do a score one day, or someone other than John Williams, although the John Williams scores are amazing, they are iconic. But if he does indeed retire or tragically passes away, which there will be a lot of mourning if he does, I would like to see perhaps Hans Zimmer. Although the Howard Shore pick by Steven is really, really good. If anything, it would be closer to a Hans Zimmer type composer than it would be a Howard Shore type composer than a Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer, just the guy's an amazing composer. That's a great choice. All right, Steven, what's your number 4?
I'm going to go and I'm going to select a director that I'd like to see. Now, this one's kind of odd, and maybe because it's kind of odd is the reason I'd like to see him do something, and that is Danny Boyle. I think Danny Boyle has just got this – he's one of my favorite directors working today. He's got this very just electric way of – his movies just have a certain energy to them. and his visual style is I think something out there, something weird. If he, I mean, even maybe a bounty hunter thing would be cool for him. Something just kind of odd. It needs to be odd. Maybe a Jabba the Hutt, crime, something weird. Because his movies always have something psychological going on, something weird going on, and I just want to see him do something. And he would be, I think, really great visually and storytelling wise. Something a little bit different for the Star Wars universe.
No, Danny Boyle, I mean, his films has run the gambit. He has done so many different kinds of films. So he's obviously a good choice because you don't know. He's never done, he's done Sunshine, so he can do science fiction. He's done horror. He's done comedy. He's done true life. He's done so many. He's worked with so many great actors too. You don't know who. Maybe there's some actors out there that would say, yeah, I want to work with Danny Boyle on a Star Wars film. You know what I mean? Trainspotting 2 coming out next year. We'll see how that is. My number 4 is someone that I just absolutely love, and she's actually in Mrs. Sloan with Jessica Chastain. It's someone that's, in my opinion, has killed it in the 2 or 3 films that I've seen her in the past, and that's Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And there are some characters in the books and comics that she could play if they decided to go that route as far as a Ray Sloan in the movies. She would be perfect casting for a Ray Sloan. And she's she's British, she's great, and she's diverse. And that's the thing about Gugu Mbatha-Raw. She's a diverse. She's black, but she's British. But she's a phenomenal actress. And I think with the diversity that Lucasfilm has been going with, I think she is a great choice for someone that could be in a future Star Wars film or standalone. I'd love to see a Ray Sloan movie. Just Ray Sloan. Wouldn't that be cool? But
yeah, I thought about that, like maybe doing a casting for her with one of my picks, but we'll see.
All right, number 3, Andrew.
You know what? Number 3, I'm gonna go with an actress as well, and I have 2 young actresses that I'm kind of battling back and forth with. But I'm gonna go with Brie Larson. Brie Larson, who is already in the Disney fold with being Captain Marvel. So, and there has been quite a few overlapping between people who have done movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and now in the new Star Wars Cinematic Universe. So that could perhaps happen. She is a fantastic actress. I've been a fan of her for years. Watch the film Short Term 12. It is phenomenal. She is excellent in it. Also, she already has an Oscar, so she comes with a lot of pedigree in terms of acting ability, and I think she would play a wonderful role in a Star Wars film. And they do really like to cast kind of these young actresses in roles. We've seen it with Rey, and now we've seen it with Jyn Erso. So there is a precedent set there as well.
Yeah, you're right about that. They will go after a young up and coming kind of actress like that. That's why I got Gugu Mbatha-Raw really fits the bill as well. Steven, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is an actress, and I kind of thought about her maybe for Ray Sloan, but honestly, she could play. I'd like to see her maybe even play a Jedi, and maybe the Old Republic. Personally, if there was any movies they made in the future, I'd really like to see Old Republic. So a lot of my actors are going to also be suggestions for Old Republic, but mine's Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett's just such a powerful actress. I mean, she could either play a villain, she could play a Jedi, she could play an officer. She can really just do anything. We've seen her in Lord of the Rings. She can do big budget. She doesn't just do indies. So it's like, yeah, I mean, get her in there somewhere. I'd like to see her probably play probably either a villain or like some type of veteran Jedi, maybe in the Old Republic.
Yeah, I mean, she can do evil too. She can do crazy because if you watch Blue Jasmine, she has lines of dialogue, and she just kind of goes off the deep end in Blue Jasmine. And then obviously she played a kind of a imperial officer type as a Nazi in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Let's not bring that up, Dan.
I'm just saying she kind of can play that type of villain too, you know, because she's done it once. And she can play a man because she's played James Dean.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
not James Dean.
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan. That's what I meant. Bob Dylan. I'm sorry, I said James Dean. All right, so I got number 3, a guy that has been really on the consciousness of the country lately. He's been in
Donald Trump?
a huge Netflix show. He's been in a couple different movies that are garnering all kinds of Oscar buzz. His name is Mahershala Ali. Mahershala Ali. This guy, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind if they put makeup on the guy. You know, put makeup, made him into an alien or something like that. You know, or once again, I could see him playing a bounty hunter on the seedy side of things. But this guy's got talent for days. I mean, days. He was in Luke Cage. He's in Moonlight. He's in Hidden Figures. Talented. Well, I'd love to see this guy as a kind of a bounty hunter or a villain in a future Star Wars film. If you guys haven't seen Moonlight or Hidden Figures yet, definitely check those films out with him in it. All right, that's my number 3. Andrew, what is your number 2?
My number 2, I'm gonna go on the technical side of the film world. I'm gonna go with a cinematographer, and I'm gonna go with Roger Deakins. I think he is one of the greatest cinematographers alive, one of the greatest ever, and I would really like to see how he would shoot a Star Wars film. It would probably look very, very gorgeous. And this is a man who has been nominated for countless Oscars and still has not won. And it's a great injustice of our time. But I definitely want to see him behind the camera. I mean, just adding more ability when it comes to production is never a bad thing.
No, I almost picked Roger Deakins for my number 2. So good thing I didn't, because you got him, and I'm glad you did. Yeah, Rob, what a great guy choice with all the planets and all the different cinemascapes and things that they do in the Star Wars universe. What a great guy to be able to shoot some of these locations. You know, I mean, that's one of the best parts about Star Wars, going to these different planets and seeing these locations. You know, and having a guy like Roger Deakins. Wow, what a great choice. All right, Steven, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is an actor that he just has this fierceness and intensity, even when he's not even trying, and it's in the eyes. It's in the eyes, and he continues to put out great performances, and he doesn't get enough love, and that is Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon played a Sith. I mean, it's like scared the shit out of you, like just by looking at you. You wouldn't even have to say anything, you know. But he didn't have to play evil. If you saw The Night Before, he can be fun. Why not let him be a scoundrel of some kind, or some kind of bounty hunter, maybe? You know, that's not particularly all the way bad. You know, yeah. I mean, Michael Shannon is just a great, intense actor that I would love to see in Star Wars. I mean, he just forms into his characters, and he's not Michael Shannon anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, Zod is a prime example of what he can do when he just puts himself out there and becomes that character. And Zod is like a Sith kind of a guy. You know, he's such
I will fight him.
and a guy that has great dialogue is his character in 99 Homes. I mean, he could do just evil, kind of sinister kind of dialogue, and he believes what he's saying, and he believes the kind of things he's spewing out of his mouth. And he was a nasty character in 99 Homes as well. So yeah, oh God, what a great choice, Michael Shannon. Oh man, see him in a freaking
Oh,
Star Wars
that
movie.
could have been my number one, but my number one is my favorite. My number one is like, I thought about it and I was like, he's got to be my number one, and he's awesome. So yeah, go ahead, move on. I want to get to my number one.
My number two is actually worked with Andrew's number two on a film or two, and his name is Denny Villeneuve. I would love to see Denny Villeneuve direct a Star Wars film. This guy, if you look at Prisoners and Enemy and Sicario and Arrival, he's done sci-fi in multiple different versions. You know, with Enemy, he had this kind of weird creature thing going on, and then with Arrival, he had the aliens and doing the alien spaceships and the language. In Sicario, he could really do kind of a plot, like a assassination plot type of thing. With just turn Sicario, make it a Star Wars film. Tell me that wouldn't have been awesome, you know, if Sicario was set in some far off planet in the Star Wars universe or something like that. That would have been really kind of neat. But yeah, Denny Villeneuve, I know he's doing Blade Runner 2049. That's his next film. But maybe that'll be enough for the people at Lucasfilm to say, yeah, we want that guy, because that guy can make a badass film. And that's what they're doing with Lucasfilm. They're choosing really up-and-coming, young, great directors, just like they are the acting choices, you know, and that sort of thing. So I would love to see a Denny Villeneuve do a Star Wars film, any Star Wars film, whether it be an Obi-Wan standalone or one of the they decided to do 10, 11, 12 later on down the line, you know, after giving it a break for a few years. You know, Denny Villeneuve is a great choice in my opinion. All right, now we're going to get to number one. Andrew, what is your number one?
My number one, kind of coming off of what Dan was saying, I'm going to go with a director as well, but I'm going to go with Ava DuVernay. I think that we need to see more female filmmakers get involved in large budget filmmaking, and I think there's nothing larger than really Star Wars. I mean, it's one of the biggest franchises ever, and I would like to see her be able to take on a film, but even if it's a smaller anthology film, I think would suit most of these filmmakers better, because dealing with these big episodic films is huge. I mean, it's the literally the weight of the entire world is on you. The world is watching you. But I would like to see her. I would like to see other female filmmakers take on a Star Wars film. And from what we know and what we speculate as fans, these films are going to be going on for quite a while. I think we can all kind of guess that after we get to episode 9, they're probably just going to continue doing films eventually. Who knows where they go from there? But I'm going to go with Ava DuVernay. I had another couple of directors I had in mind, but I really want to see someone like her take on a Star Wars film. She's really great when it comes with characters. She's really great on the technical side. She really knows how to make very, very well-made films.
Yeah, no, Ava DuVernay, Selma. I mean, if you haven't seen Selma, and then also 13. What is it? 13. Have you guys seen that documentary on Netflix? She did. What's it? 13 hours.
I think it's just called 13th.
13. Okay, 13th. And that shows our prison system and what's going on in our prison system and stuff. From what I have heard, it's just amazing. You just can't take your eyes off the screen when you're watching it. It's so hard to watch. It's that good. She's already doing A Wrinkle in Time. I don't know. Is that a Disney film? Is she under the Disney contract or no?
It is.
All right.
Is it Disney? Yeah.
So she's already doing a Disney film, and that would just segue into doing another Disney. She almost did. From what I heard, she was going. They offered her Black Panther,
right? And
the rumor that she may have done, we're going to do Captain Marvel, but she chose not to do either one of those. But she ended up doing A Wrinkle in Time. So I think she doesn't mind working for Disney.
Right.
She's going to be the right project. So yeah, Ava DuVernay, great film director choice. Andrew, Steven, what is your number one? I know you've been chomping at the bit for this.
All right. I'm probably going to be okay. Now it's a great. I think it's personally. This is like the best pick ever for an actor to be in Star Wars.
Oh boy, no.
It's the best pick ever. Nicolas Cage. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. It is. That's a good pick though. But no, my pick is going to be a guy that once again has just played so many different types of roles, and I've always just loved his work since I was a kid. And Viggo Mortensen. I want to see Viggo in the Star Wars universe. And I kind of came up with this on the top of my head. I'd love to see them do a movie about kind of like in the style of like Full Metal Jacket, but stormtroopers. And he's like the head. He's playing his character from G.I. Jane, and he's like the head teaching everybody. He's the main guy, and he starts quoting Poe or whatever. He's saying poems. Bird from a bough, or whatever, some Star Wars poem. And, but it's like a psychological war movie, another war, we got Rogue One, but this is a psychological, more than anything. And yeah, I want to see Viggo being a stormtrooper, the head of a stormtrooper training facility or something. Do something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great choice, Stephen, for Viggo Mortensen, but I see him as more of like an older version of like a Luke Skywalker type of character where he's like a Jedi.
Sure. I mean, he's that good. He could play. It's like Cate Blanchett. He could play anything. I mean, but I honestly want to see him do villain, because anytime he plays a villain or somebody that's a little bit on the bad side, like his character, or somebody that's in the in between, like in Eastern Promises. That character in Eastern Promises, if he was that character in the Star Wars universe, somebody that's just very dark, and done bad things, but chooses to do good in a certain situation. That's the kind of character I'd like to see him play.
Yeah. No, Viggo Mortensen would be great. If you haven't seen Captain Fantastic out there, everybody, please go out to see Captain Fantastic. Phenomenal movie, phenomenal performance. He's getting a lot of critical acclaim for his performance in Captain Fantastic. My number one is, I saw a movie this week, and I'm a fan of this actor. I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of this actor. I remember him from way back in Slumdog Millionaire. Then I watched The Newsroom for 3 seasons, and I'm like, wow, this kid is really starting to come into his own as a great actor. And if they ever decide to take, which they may not, I don't know, they ever decide to take a character from like Rebels, like an Ezra Bridger or somebody like that, and actually put them into a movie, or let's say they did a Rebels movie, I think this guy would be perfect casting for like an older Ezra Bridger. And with his performance in Lion, I think Dev Patel really shows some range and some darkness in him, where he could be a villain, but we've already seen him in multiple things be a good guy. So my choice for my number one pick is, I think he's got a really good shot at it, is Dev Patel. And once again, diversity. They really are going with a lot of people from different races and different backgrounds and different sexes and so far, and which is really good for Lucasfilm and good for the people watching, because it appeals to people all over the world and from all over different countries and so forth. So that's a good thing with Marvel and Disney and whatnot and Lucasfilm. So those are our choices. Who knows? Maybe a couple of years go by and we come back and revisit our lists, who we think might be in a movie, and see who came out with the most picks. Maybe
Nicolas Cage will probably get in there, and I didn't even put him on. I was gonna put him on there, but then he didn't get it, and then
regrets. Regrets.
Do you guys know the name of his new movie? They just did a trailer for this new movie where he plays this really kind of seedy, kind of like nasty kind of character with a mustache and long puffy hair, and looks like it's like back in the 70s. I could see him playing like an alien like that, some kind of like. Maybe
he could just do a voice for something. They did it with Daniel Craig, That's how they're getting cameos for certain actors that want to be in Star Wars, and not play a character. They're a stormtrooper, or they're this guy. I can see him doing the voice for like, he should do the voice for like Salacious Crumb's dad or something.
I mean, you're right. He could play some nasty, overweight, fat guy, or something like that. You don't even know it's Nicolas Cage in there. But so hopefully, you never know. We'll revisit this list next year if we're still doing the top 5 weekly. Hopefully, we will be, and we'll see if any of our choices have been chosen. We all picked 5 different people, so it's 15 people that the 3 of us would like to see in a future Star Wars movie. So that's 15 chances that one of those people will get into a Star Wars movie in some capacity. So that was kind of fun choosing. I love the reasoning behind the choices and so forth from the guys and myself. All right, so let's get back to our top 5 Star Wars scenes. We're getting into the nitty gritty now. Andrew, what is your number 3?
Okay, back to the nitty gritty. My number 3 is another scene from The Empire Strikes Back. There seems to be a recurring theme with that, but it is the cave scene when Luke is training with Yoda on Dagobah. It's the scene right after they're doing their physical training, swinging on vines, jumping over logs, things of that nature, and Luke decides to go into this kind of creepy, very eerie-looking cave, and Luke asks Yoda, what will I find in there? And Yoda says, only what you take with you. And, of course, Luke decides to take his weapons with him, and Yoda goes, you won't need them. But he does it anyway, not listening to Yoda, because he's very hard-headed in that way. But he goes in there, and he kind of interacts with and sees a kind of illusion type version of Vader, and he has this very brief lightsaber duel with him, and in which he knocks this fake Vader's head off, and the mask rolls and the mask explodes, and you see Luke's face inside of the mask. And I've always interpreted that as you can end up being Vader if you go down a certain path, or even it could mean that Vader is a Skywalker, which we all know later on in the film does indeed happen. So it's a very eerie, very interesting scene that have always been rather cryptic to me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other Star Wars fans have debated about it and whatnot, and what it actually is, what that area on Dagobah actually is. I think it was something I couldn't remember in the old canon, the Legends canon, about what that area was on Dagobah, but it's a really interesting part of the training with Yoda.
Yeah, that really is an interesting scene. A lot of psychological stuff. Those scenes are still speculated today. What was going on in some of those scenes? They're very, very good scenes. Lucas really put some real psychological and thought-provoking things in Empire, more so than in his other films. All right, Andrew, what is your number? Steven, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is also from Empire. And, instead of going with what is for a lot of people their favorite scene in that movie, which is, of course, the lightsaber fight and the moment, where he says, spoiler, that he's his father and blah, I decided to go with a scene that's right before that one. And that is one of the most G scenes by any guy and ever. And that's the moment when Han gets put in carbonite and he says, Leia's like, I love you. And he's like, I know. One of the most G moments of all time. He's like, bitch, I know you love me. I know, and it's like, it's great. It's fantastic and emotional. The music, fantastic in that scene. And it just upped the stakes in that movie. One of the characters that's supposed to be, heroes don't die, or like think, get taken out like that. Like we didn't know what was going to happen to him at that point. We didn't know. I mean, they even said, hey, he might survive. He should survive, maybe, but it's just a powerful scene and I love it. It's one of my favorite moments in Star.
Yeah, how can you not love that scene? that's part of what makes Empire great is some of these tragic scenes in this movie. It's like one tragic scene after another. It's just it's the dark film in that trilogy, and supposedly episode 8 is going to be the dark film in the next trilogy from what I have been hearing. My
They
number
should do happy. They should do happy in the middle.
no, I like dark.
Darker the better.
There you go, Andrew. My
It
number
should be a
3
musical.
is in the Return of the Jedi. We have the failed rescue attempt of Han from Carbonite, and Luke ends up getting captured and kills the Rancor. God, I love Jabba's palace. There's so many crazy, seedy, oddball characters, and we got Bib Fortuna, and we got the Gamorrean guards, and we got Salacious Crumb, we got Boba Fett hanging out in there, we got Princess Leia in a slave outfit, a bikini, and that's the best Carrie Fisher ever looked in her entire life. You just gotta love the Jabba's palace scene in Return of the Jedi. And when Luke kills that Rancor, that Rancor guard, he's bawling his eyes out. You gotta love that. Luke was such a badass in Jedi, and he really came into his own in that film. But that's the beginning of that. You're like, yeah, we're off to a good start in this film. I saw it in the theater in 1983, and I loved it every time I've seen it since. So that's my number 3. Andrew, what is your number 2?
Number 2. My number 2, I'm gonna go with the scene that Steven decided not to mention, and that is the first lightsaber duel between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker on Cloud City. The reason why I chose that, other than of course the massive reveal at the end of Darth Vader being Luke's father, is that it's very interesting moment, I think, in Luke's life or character arc or heroic arc, or whatever you want to call it, in that he really takes on the big bad guy for the first time. And what we find out is that he is not ready. He thinks he's ready. He's overconfident. He thinks he can take on Vader, but he is really very much outmatched. And it's always interesting seeing that scene every time and seeing how overmatched he really is. Although he is impressive, most impressive if you listen to Darth Vader. That's a quote I quote too often around people who don't know what I'm talking about, but such is the life of a Star Wars fan. But what is iconic about the scene, other than the ending, is that it's kind of the classic. The hero has to fall before he can rise back up and become the hero he is supposed to be, which we do see in Return of the Jedi, as Dan just mentioned.
Yeah, I might talk about that before the show's over. Steven, what is your...
All right, my number 2 is to me, it's maybe one of the moments in the whole series that really got me emotionally, and it's one of my favorite parts of the prequel trilogy, and that is when we get to episode 3 and the Order 66 is given by Sidious, and that whole sequence is just heartbreaking, going all over the galaxy and seeing all these different Jedi just being killed by the clones, and it actually teared me up. Like, and then when it gets to Yoda's just too good, man. He's like, screw you, and then he just does a side flip thing and cuts off 2 clones' heads, and it's badass. It's Yoda, and then you get to see Anakin go in and kill a bunch of younglings. That's great too, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. Yellow eyes. But it's one of, to me, out of the prequels, even though Dan's crazy and he thinks that it's the worst Star Wars movie, it's to me my favorite prequel movie, and it's got a lot of great stuff in it, and that scene in particular just gets me. Execute Order 66. Yeah, it's great.
No, that is a great scene. I mean, I was just watching Revenge of the Sith before the show, and that's a very, very powerful scene. It's sad to see all those Jedi get killed because there's so many cool, like Kit Fisto, and so many neat. I would like to have seen stories with them. A backstory with Kit Fisto and some of these different alien races where these different Jedi come from and stuff. That stuff's fascinating to me. My number 2 is, without this scene, without the beginning of Star Wars, without getting those Death Star plans to those droids and shooting them down to Tatooine, we wouldn't have Star Wars. Without Leia, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope. That stuff, that's the beginning. And without that, we wouldn't have the rest. And so I had to pick the beginning of A New Hope. Darth Vader going through those guys and coming, find me those rebel plans. All right.
That sounded just like Darth Vader.
Yeah, that was ideal.
You got everything that is what Star Wars is meant to be in those beginning scenes at the beginning of that A New Hope, and it's just, oh God, I can't believe how great they melded Rogue One to A New Hope. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to save my non-spoiler review of A New Hope for last. I'm going to start with Andrew. Andrew, tell us your thoughts about Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Okay, then I shall. I won't take up too much time because I do plan on doing a whole long review myself on my channel. But I will say this: it is the Star Wars film that I've always wanted to see as a Star Wars fan. I've always wanted to see a war film with the Rebellion. I wanted to see what it was like for the Rebellion to take on the Empire. I know we got a lot of that in the original trilogy, but we didn't really get kind of a more fuller picture of it. We didn't get to see really what happened before the events in A New Hope and Return, New Hope, Empire, and Return. So it was really awesome to see the Rebellion in a more fuller way, in a different way. You see a lot of interesting things. I won't give anything away, but from a filmmaking standpoint, it does have a few problems for me. I will say that the film, when it comes to its characterization and its characters, is a little underwritten. It's underwritten in the sense that I really like these characters a lot. These characters are diverse, they are interesting, they all have great little things about each one, a lot of comic relief, a lot of badassness in there, especially with Donnie Yen's character. But what I wanted to see was more of who they were. I wanted to know what their motivations were, what their backstories were, why they're doing what they're doing. And I feel there's a lack of that in the film. But on the flip side, I really, really liked the action. I thought the CGI, the action sequences were great. I love the fact they shot the film on location, which really, really shows the difference between location shooting versus shooting things on a green screen in a studio, which we saw a lot with the prequel stuff. And it was really, really awesome. And that third act, I would say as a Star Wars fan, that's pure nirvana. That's a dream. That's a fantasy. I think something I've been wanting to see for a long, long time. And like Dan says, it really leads right into A New Hope in a very, very interesting way.
Yeah, that's good job on that, Andrew. Stephen, try to expound on what Andrew said or say something different or whatever if you feel.
Well, I've seen it 2 times, and the second time it was even better. And it's really, like he said, I basically have the same problems too, underdeveloped characters, a little bit. But the thing is I think when you have a war movie like this, and if you watch any other war film, it happens. Some of the characters are just basically complementary characters to the 1 or 2 main characters, and that's just what you got to deal with a movie with a huge cast like this. But to me, I went into this movie wanting to experience the universe and, you know, the new planets and just, you know, I knew I was going to have some fun with it, you know, but I didn't think I was going to have as much fun as I did, especially in that third act. And literally the last couple minutes of the movie is like the most. I stood up and screamed, like crying. I was almost crying at how badass the end of this movie is. Yeah, it's, to me, and it's been described this way by a lot of other people too, is that when you were a kid and you were playing Star Wars with your friends or something, this was what it was. Like us, like sneaking around and looking for stormtroopers, and like just, it felt like what I was as a kid on screen, you know. And it's yeah, and a lot of good cameos, and it's, to me, it's maybe in my top 3 Star Wars movies. Like, it might be in my top 3. So
yeah, it's not in my top 3.
Well, Dan, you don't like Revenge of the, you think Attack of the Clones is better than Revenge of the Sith. I don't know if I can take your opinion into account. I'm sorry.
What can I say? I like the stuff on Coruscant and with Obi-Wan, and the big battle with the big monsters at the end. And
sand is coarse. I get it. Sand is coarse. It's irritating.
No, I mean what I loved about it is we get to see all these new planets, Jeddah and Darth Vader's home planet where his castle is. And
what, your spoilers?
That's not a spoiler. We know Darth Vader's in the film. We get to see new planets, and we know Saw Gerrera's in there, and he's got this great group of freaking seedy, interesting characters that are with him. And we know he's got a big role in the movie, Forrest Whitaker. And then when you go to Yavin 4, they expand on Yavin 4. We had a couple scenes in A New Hope with Yavin 4, but not that much. We get that is kind of expanded upon in this film, and you get to see so many different characters and cameos, like you said, Stephen. There's cameos of characters on Yavin 4. The crawl in A New Hope explains everything that happens in Rogue One, and it's really down to the T. That's if you really want to know how close they got to what they wanted to do in Rogue One, read the crawl in A New Hope. It's amazing how close to what they were trying to achieve they came. And the ending is very satisfactory. The battle, they're basically having a Star Wars battle in Florida. I know it's islands in the Pacific, but it looks like Florida to me. And I'm like, yeah, they're fighting in Florida. The Keys of Florida or some crap like that. It's like palm trees and beautiful bodies of water. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Oh God, the planet. I just cannot say enough about all the different planets they went to and exploring new places that we haven't got to explore in other films. And that's what's great about Star Wars. You get to go to places that you haven't gone before. And I love that kind of thing about Rogue One. The characters, I can't say enough for Diego Luna, Felicity Jones, Alan Tudyk, Ben Mendelsohn. He's used to playing a bad guy. He plays this guy so good. You're like, yeah, that's the kind of guy we're used to seeing Ben Mendelsohn play. And, Mads Mikkelsen's a good guy, so it's neat to see these actors that we see in all these different shows and different movies nowadays and stuff like, and they're getting chosen for. Lucas is really doing a great job with the casting. I mean, I gave Rogue One 4.5 stars on my Letterboxd. I don't think it's a perfect film. There's some slow stuff in the beginning, but it's character building stuff with some of the characters like Saw Gerrera and some of those type of things. So I was glad to see. How about the monster and the makeup and the creature effects that they do in this film? Great job. They always do a great job creating new creatures and new monsters and new characters with makeup and that sort of stuff. That's one of my favorite things about Star Wars films seeing those different kinds of monsters and creatures and things like that. So they did, once again, a great job with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to see it again. I almost went and saw it today, but I just wasn't feeling it today. Maybe I'll go tomorrow and see it again. Um, I I have to do a review of it myself, Andrew. I haven't really done a review of it. But all right, so let's get into our honorable mentions before we get into our number one Star Wars scene. Any, missed the cut just slightly, Andrew.
Okay, just to piggyback off of some of Steven's scenes in general, the Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan fight from the end of Episode 1 is amazing. I'll say this. It's probably one of the highlights of the entire prequel trilogy for me. Like Steven said, it introduces the Duel of the Fates song, which I think is iconic. I think John Williams' work in the prequels was great in general, but I do like that scene. I like the fight on Geonosis in Attack of the Clones. It is the first fight of the Clone Wars, so it is really kind of a huge historic moment in the Star Wars world, in the Star Wars timeline, because as we all know with the Clone Wars, it leads to the rise of the Empire and things of that nature. So that's huge. Also, the lightsaber fight between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi at Revenge of the Sith is once again, despite what you think about the prequel trilogy, and I'm generally negative about it as well, that's a great moment. That is it, with the music by John Williams, the fight on Mustafar with the lava. It is a little overdone when they're bouncing around on droids on lava and stuff like that, but the emotion is still there. The emotion's still there at the end as well, when you see Anakin being just torched by fire, and then you see him become Vader, officially Vader. They should have really gotten rid of that no, or else I would have mentioned that scene, but there's a lot of honorable mentions here with the prequels, because there is good stuff within the prequels. When it comes to the stuff in the original trilogy, when you see the Mos Eisley Cantina for the first time, there's that iconic music playing. I like when you meet Lando for the first time, and you're not really quite sure who he is, and then you realize he is a buddy, but he also has to make certain backdoor deals with the Empire to stay alive, basically. It's really, really great. And that kick-ass scene at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, when Luke is taking out all of Jabba the Hutt's henchmen on the sail barge, is one that really I've always loved since I was a kid.
Steven, got any honorable mentions?
I mean, first off, if we were talking Rogue One, there's a scene at the end that would probably be maybe number one, but because we're not, I'm not, as I've said, Attack of the Clones isn't my favorite movie, but it did have some good stuff in it. And there was obviously the Geonosis battle at the end is really good. Other than that, I did really like the chase scene near the beginning where they try to assassinate Padme, and they chase after that bounty hunter, the changeling, and that's pretty cool. The banter between Obi-Wan and Anakin in that scene's really good. Also, at the beginning of Force Awakens, when we get introduced to Kylo Ren, was pretty cool, where he stops the laser bolt midair and you meet Poe Dameron for the first time. Really cool. Yeah, I mean, there's scenes all over the prequels, that you could pick and choose from. And yeah, A New Hope, anything with Obi-Wan in it, I love. I mean, it's my favorite character. Like you said, when you go to the cantina, it's best stuff. Yeah, I mean, but saving number one for number one.
Yeah, I got obviously the battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul at the end of Phantom Menace, and also the Pit of Harkoon battle on Jabba's sail barge where they kill Jabba the Hutt. Those are the two that I got. And, of course, those two have been mentioned by both Andrew and Steven. So Star Wars is one of the things, I mean, if it's good, people are going to remember it. And so both Steven and Andrew pretty much got all the good scenes. And between the three of us, I think we got all the good scenes But there are just so many good scenes, even in quote unquote the bad films of the prequels. There are just so many good scenes, even in those bad films. So here we go. Drum roll, please, boys. We got Andrew.
Nice, nice. My number, before I get to my number one, I did forget to mention the Force Awakens scenes in my honorable mentions, but yeah, once Steven mentioned the Rey scene, I got chills in the theater when I saw it for the first time. I get chills every time I see it. I'm still registering the Force Awakens in my Star Wars mental catalog. That's why I completely forgot to mention it during this episode. But yeah, there are several scenes from there I do like. I do like seeing Han Solo once again, and a bunch of stuff from that movie. But I will go on to my number one. My number one scene, perhaps it's cliche, perhaps it's a little safe, is going to be the lightsaber duel between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi. It is just so packed full of emotions and themes. It is kind of, it's the rise of a hero and the fall of a villain, but a villain changing to a hero at the very end. It's really, really interesting dynamics going on in that scene, where you see that the whole time the Emperor is trying to seduce Luke Skywalker, kind of the same way he tried to and successfully seduced Anakin Skywalker, and he almost wins there at the very end. The Emperor does, and it's very interesting to see that Luke almost goes down the path of the dark side, and almost becomes Vader's successor to with Palpatine, but it doesn't happen, and you get the iconic scene of Vader picking up the Emperor and throwing him off that thing into that reactor pit or whatever it was. But I remember watching that entire sequence as a kid and just being awestruck by this duel of wills and this duel of fates, if you will. And even today, I watch it and I love it for its iconicness. And it's really the final test for Luke Skywalker to really become a Jedi Knight or a Master Jedi. Of course, we're going to be seeing things now where Luke is what type of Jedi Luke really is. So that's going to be very interesting to see where the new stuff picks off from.
Yeah, great choice, Andrew. I mean, that's one of the classic scenes in all the Star Wars films. All right, Steven, go ahead. I know you've been chopping at the bit for this one as well.
Also, like Andrew, I forgot another one. The fight, honorable mention was the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end of Episode 3 is pretty epic. And the ending of that fight where Obi-Wan finally wins is just, it's heartbreaking too. You know, like it's like he was like his son or his brother is, you know, like it's heartbreaking. But like Andrew, I decided to go with the same pick, end of Return of the Jedi. It's, you know, thinking about which fight I liked more, either the one in Empire or the one in Return of the Jedi. Actually, I really like the Return of the Jedi finale more. And it just, and after seeing the prequels, it means so much more because you know the journey of Anakin Skywalker and you know he sees what happened to him happening now to his son. And it's just like he decides to not let it happen and decides to get rid of the evil, you know, and in turn redeeming himself and hopefully bringing balance, you know, like, and it's got so many things happening at once. And really it's when if you go back before the prequels, this is the first time you really get to see Sidious, you know, really, you know, in a good, in all his evil, you know, and using Force lightning. First time you've seen Force lightning, you know, it's a frightening scene. It's an emotional scene. And yeah, I mean, and green lightsabers versus blue lightsabers and I'm sorry, red lightsabers. And it's just a great scene. And it just goes back and forth and yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the culmination of, you know, with the prequels, all 6 movies, if you watch it from the beginning, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are right on that. But as a kid and as a young adult growing up, and as I've gotten older, the end of Empire Strikes Back has affected me, and has really meant more to me as a Star Wars fan because of my own personal life and the relationship with my own father and that sort of stuff. So to watch Empire and to have that amazing battle at the end with Luke and Vader, and then that classic line, "I am your father," you know, that hit me like a ton of bricks as a child because of my personal relationship with my own father. And I had to have that as my number one. And Empire is my number one, my favorite movie from beginning to end. It's just one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. It's in my personal top 5 films of all time. I just think there's just almost nothing you can say wrong about Empire Strikes Back, and that culminates that film as one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. And to this very day, you know, where people are comparing Rogue One to Empire Strikes Back, and this is almost as good. And it's Rogue One isn't as good as Empire Strikes Back. It's a very good film, but in my opinion, I don't think it's as good as the original trilogy at all. But that's just my opinion. And that scene, it's just one of the greatest movie scenes. If you go to the AFI's top 100 movie scenes of all time, I think when they did the list, I think it's at number 8 on the top 10 of AFI's 100 movie scenes of all time. I believe it's either at number 8 or number 10. It's in the top 10. You know how many movies there have been? And to have a scene from Empire Strikes Back, the ending of Empire Strikes Back, be in the top 10 of movie scenes of all time, that's amazing. That tells you how powerful and how groundbreaking that scene is in film and in science fiction and in Star Wars and in general. But so yeah, I had to have the end of Empire Strikes Back in there as my number one. But I just want to say thanks again to these guys. Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions, where I do episode reviews for the various comic book television series, as well as movie reviews, some Blu-ray hauls that I'll be doing coming up, and unboxings and things of that nature. So there's a lot of variety that is going to be on hand coming soon.
Steven?
You can find me, Stephen Billings, on Facebook. And I run a channel called Film Club Central on YouTube. We do a lot of shows. We do Film Club Movie Show, Not Another Geek podcast, Traumataries. We do trailer reactions. We do movie reviews. We do a little bit of everything.
And you can find me. I do a podcast called The Best Damn Movie Show with my co-host Vinny LaSpada. We just did an episode this past week where I do a lot of reviews. A lot of movies that I've seen previously. I did not do Rogue One because I didn't see it before doing the show, but I will be doing it this upcoming week. Also, obviously, you can find me, Dan Skip Allen, on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I just want to say thanks again, guys, for being on here. Hopefully, we gave all the Star Wars fans out there that might be watching or might watch in the future a fun show that delved into all the Star Wars lore, and may the Force be with you. Good night.